If you enjoy editing landscape images, then ON1 Photo RAW is by far, hands down, one of the best softwares that you can use on the market today. In this episode of the Quick Edits, what we're going to do is take a look at a battlefield image that I shot at the Gettysburg battlefield, try to say that fast, in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Stay tuned. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video here on Freewheel Photos. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Chris and I help photographers learn photo editing software so that way you can get your creative looks out and into the world. And I do that all through showing tutorials on the software here at this channel. Now, if that is something you want more content on, consider hitting that subscribe button so that way you can join the community right here on Freewheel Photos. Now today we are going to be taking a look at a landscape image, so I'm not going to sit here and bump my gums. We're just going to jump right into the computer. Here we are inside of ON1 Photo RAW, and you can see the image. It's raw, and I have all kinds of data that I need to recover in the image. It's going to be great. This is a relatively normal thing that's going to happen with landscape images. So with ON1 Photo RAW, the very first place that I always start is using Brilliance AI. Now, the cool thing about working inside of ON1 Photo RAW is that everything I do is non-destructive. So I'm just going to let Brilliance AI run its course and, kind of figure out what the tones need to be in the overall image. And I don't always agree with what Brilliance AI has to say, but I always let it do its thing. Now, you can see that it recovered a lot of the shadow detail, which I was actually kind of filling for this particular image because it was a sunset photo. So what I'm going to do is come over to the tone and color module. And the cool thing about Brilliance AI is if I wanted to, I could tune this here by pulling it down, or I can pull it up and you could see what it's doing to the image. So there's a lot of really fun that I could have in this particular aspect. But what I could also do is just come over here and pull down the color data if I think that it's manipulating the colors way too much for my taste. And I can also pull down on the tone amount if I feel like that's just not getting the tone that I want. Now, for my circumstances of what I want to do with this particular image, I'm going to go ahead and put the color all the way back up because I like what it's doing overall. I'm just going to pull down on the amount here, and then I'm going to come over to tone and color because Brilliance AI, and I have a video on what Brilliance AI is actually doing to your video. Check the description box and you'll be able to see that. But essentially it is monitoring or manipulating, I should say, the tone and color in a as intelligent way as it possibly can. All right. But like I said, I kind of like that this is dark here, but I want to recover some of the white information or the brighter information in the image. In order for me to do that, I'm just going to pull up on my white slider here and you can see what it's doing to the overall image. Now, I personally don't care to go all the way. I don't think that that does anything beneficial for the overall image. I did shoot this a little underexposed intentionally because I was trying to preserve the color in the sky, the tonal value in the sky, all that. So when you're editing, that really does matter, right? You got to take those things into consideration. You can't just come over and grab sliders. I mean, you could, but you should have some intentionality. And that's one of the things that I teach here on the channel is intentionality when editing. So with all of that, I'm going to go ahead and pull down on my highlights just a little bit because I'm going to do some additional editing later, but I'm just going to pull up on the contrast as well. And what that's helping me with is it's making this foreground just a little bit darker, but it's keeping a really nice highlight that's happening over the cannons here, which are kind of the main feature. And then I would say the sunset would be the secondary feature. So it's important to know what it is that you're trying to get out of your images. And that's ultimately what I want to do is kind of accentuate the cannons at sundown and tell the story. And then you work your eye into the background and you get to see the sunset. All right. So that's kind of the story. Now, how do I get to that point? Well, let's go ahead and pull down on the blacks just a little bit. And you're seeing these blue indicators pop up. If you're new to ON1, that just means that I have no information in that area. It's pure black. And if I don't want to see that, I can just click the little arrows up here and those go away. And I'm okay with that for this image because I'm not printing this. I'm purely going to create this and then post it on Vero as one of my images. So that's all that this is doing. So now what I want to do is mess around with the haze slider, because the day that I shot this, there was some little haze or a little bit of haze in the sky. And so let me just go ahead and pull down or pull up on the haze slider, see what happens. And if I pull down, okay, so negative haze brings back a little bit of that information in the sky overall. And then I'm okay with the structure where it is. So now I'm going to kind of fine tune my colors. Now, this is not my only adjustment for colors. If you're new to ON1 or any photo editing app, saturation and vibrance, not always the best tool to use when it comes to editing color. But I am going to push up on the vibrance because I tend to like this look in my images. So now that I have the vibrance relatively set where I want it to be, I like to mess around with my saturation. So I like to pull it down until it's kind of, muted tones in the, or muted colors in the images, in the image, I should say. And then what I like to do is just pull it up until my saturation hits a point where I'm like, okay, there's just enough color. Now you could go overboard. Like this is like extremely cartoony. I don't really care for this. All right. But this is also under. So what I like to do is just pull it up until I see the saturation that I like, because I'm going to manipulate these colors later in the effects module. And I know that I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at -13. I think that sets the right canvas for me to officially work on. So this is what I came into ON1 with, which I was actually happy with the look out of camera. It gave me like the baseline look. And then with the Brilliance AI added to this image, it just brought out some of the detail that was missing. Now I'm going to go back and re-add some of that shadow area in the foreground elements. And the way that I like to do this is with local adjustments. So we're just going to jump over here to the local. I'm going to hit add adjustment. And I'm doing this relatively quick, but any questions that you have, please leave them in the comment section below. But for those of you who use ON1 regularly, you know what I'm doing here. All right, so now that I have the canvas the way that I want it to go, what I'm going to do is kind of bring back some of that darkness in the foreground. So I'm going to hit add adjustment. I'm going to right click on my mask and I'm going to create a depth mask. Now this is new in ON1 Photo RAW 2025. And if you're not familiar with the depth mask, what it's doing is it is applying the adjustment to the thing that's closest or in the foreground of my image, moving all the way back to the background and making the mask darker. So, or non-impacting to the image. That makes sense. Anywhere where there's white, it's going to get this negative exposure adjustment. And anywhere where there's black, it's not going to get any. And wherever it's gray, it's going to give it a little bit of that adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and hit the letter O. And then I want to turn this off and turn it back on. And that's actually doing a pretty good job. However, I'm going to fine tune this mask just a little bit, even though I think it did a good job. And to fine tune it, you come up to masking and then levels, and you can pull this left or right and you can see what it's doing to the mask. But sometimes the mask is a little misleading. So what I'm going to do is hit the letter O, and I'm going to watch this in real time on the image to make sure that it's getting into the areas and, given the look that I want, right? Sometimes you can have a technically correct mask, but it may not give you the look that you want. So it's always good to get the right look. And I think that this is the look that I want. So if I turn off the adjustment and turn it back on, it just gives a little bit of that darker feeling, where I kind of get the silhouette of the cannons with that highlight that's going over the top of the cannons here, and nice little rim light, if you will, as the sun is setting. So that's kind of the look that I want to go for. But in these brighter areas, I do want to brighten those up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that adjustment alone. I'm going to add a new one, and I'm just going to hit lighten on the adjustments here. And with a really low opacity, like maybe we'll go with 16, and a large brush relatively, and a feather. So let me reset this brush back to the standard brush. And I'm going to put the feather back up to 100 and bring our opacity down to 20. We'll go 22. And then I'm just going to paint this in again. All right. And the goal here is to build up like hot spots of and pockets of light that just make the overall area look a little bit more interesting. All right, you could do this and spend as much time as you want, but what I'm going to do is just paint this in a few places to kind of build up. Hit the letter O, see what's happening there. I still got that other brush, but I'm going to leave that because it's not really impacting everything. And maybe I'll open up a little bit on these trees. So with a higher opacity and a little bit of a larger brush, I'm just going to paint over these trees to bring out some details in those trees. All right. And this is the beauty of working with local adjustments. So now that I have that done, if I turn it off and turn it back on, you can see what it's doing to the overall image and how it's just kind of bringing a little bit of that light into the area. All right. So I like what it's doing here, and I may even increase the shadow just to really help that show off. Maybe something like that. Yeah, we'll call it good. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? This is just to show you the concept of editing. But so far we went from this to this, and now the fun begins, or at least what I think is fun. In fact, let me do one more adjustment. We're going to make a sky adjustment. So I'm going to hit the letter M to get my masking bug. I'm going to bring this all the way down there. We'll flip this around. And I could have used the sky mask, but the reason I didn't is because I just want this to fade into the overall image. So what I'm going to do is pull down on the temperature to bring in a little bit of blue. I'm kind of fibbing here. I haven't used that term in a long time, since I was a kid, but I'm, kind of just making up that the sky was blue because it clearly was not blue. If you look at the unretouched image, this is the raw image without any of the adjustments. This is what the sky looked like, and I'm adding in a little bit of a blue tint to it to make the sky look a little bit better. And I think that's going to help us overall when we really start to manage these colors. So now I'm going to jump into the effects. And the very first thing I'm going to grab is a color enhancer. And the color enhancer is like by far one of my favorite color management tools. I don't even use the color adjustment anymore. I only use the color enhancer. And I'm going to click on foliage. Now this is going to target the greens in the image, and you can see how it made those pop. And because I know that I have these greens in the foreground, I can brighten them up a little bit. And if I turn this off and turn it back on, it's subtle, but I'm starting to really develop the colors in the image. All right. Now I'm going to work with this sunset here because I think that that's, a very key piece of the overall image. So I'm going to go ahead and add another color enhancer. And this one, I'm going to hit desert. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see how it brought some reds into the sky there. And I'm using just the presets that come with ON1 to kind of manipulate this sun. And we'll saturate it a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit darker in the oranges. And I'm going to increase the brightness in the reds. Saturate that. Separate them by magenta maybe, or push it more towards the orange. Let's turn this off and then turn it back on. And you can see what it's doing to the image there. And in fact, I'm also going to come up here to the color section and we will hit vibrance. And then I'm also going to warm this up a touch. And maybe even saturate it. We'll move the magenta, or move the tint towards magenta. All right, let me turn this off, turn it back on. That looks pretty good, but I don't want it over the entire image. So we're gonna just go ahead and drop a linear gradient, rotate it around so it's only impacting the top portion of the image, and then I'm just going to fade it down. So it's not even going to fully impact the sunset area there. And also have the opacity pulled down. If I pull the opacity all the way up, it is just way too strong. So I want to pull the opacity down, and then I'm also feathering it so it's not 100% impacted by even the 60% of the opacity. Numbers, I promise it just looks better this way, or at least to my eye, and I'm the one that's working on the image. All right, so we went from this to this so far. All right, and there's more that we can do. So the next thing is I'm going to add in a curves filter. We're going to come over to the blue channel, and in the highlights, I want to add in some yellow, and you can see what that's doing to the sky. Obviously, I'm going to mask this because I don't want that everywhere. We'll come over to the reds and wonder if I can push. Yeah, there we go. We'll even push a little bit of reds into the channel there. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to hit mask sky and see if I can retain that to just the sky. And then I'll probably even reduce it a little bit more. So let's invert this. So now it's only in the sky, this adjustment with the curve. And let's reduce the opacity so the original kind of blends through. Because the goal here is just to enhance, not to completely transform. And I like what I'm getting here. So I'm going to go with that. But I feel like I want a little bit of a glow as well. So I'm going to add in another curve, and I'm going to come over to the yellows, and I'm going to add some more, or I'm sorry, to the blues. I'm going to add some more yellow into the image, and I'm going to exaggerate this because I'm going to really fine tune it. And then I'll come over to the reds, and I'll also add some reds just to kind of mix this and make it a little orangish. Let's see if I can. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the mask, get my masking bug. And this time I am going to use a vignette. We'll click right here. And I want this to be, I want to protect the edges. So it's going to happen right here in the center. And we're going to make this really, really small. And I don't want to rotate you. I want to pull this really, really thin. We'll rotate it back the other way. And if you just bear with me, it's going to make sense. You can see kind of what it's doing already. And the goal here is just and I'm going to feather this as best I can. Something like that. And then just pull down on the opacity. And then all of this area, I am going to intersect that with a linear top. Hit the letter O just to make sure that I am getting this in the right area. And I think I need to rotate this around. Yep, there we go. So now I'm only applying this above the break. And then I'll bring the feather down. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay. And who knows, maybe I should let some of this fall over those trees just a little bit. It's more perceived than actually seen. Yeah. So turning it off and turning it back on. So this is with it on, and this is with the effect off. You could see how it's just helping enhance the colors, the glow of that sunset. That's all that I was really trying to do with that particular curve. Okay. So now what else do I want to do? I don't think I want to add a glow to this particular image, but now it's looking just a little darker than I probably wanted it. So I'm going to push the shadows just a little bit more from the base. And I think that could work out pretty well. So I'm not going to nitpick this. I think that overall, this is a good edit for this particular image. So this is what I came into the editing bay with, and this is what I'm walking out of the editing bay with, or at least what I got so far. Another thing I could do is probably give this a crop, and I don't think I want a 4x5. Let's see what a 3x4 will get me. And I just want to make sure that I tell the story. So maybe a 3x4 is not the right crop. We'll go with the 2x3, which is the aspect ratio of the camera. And I'll just pull that information up like so. Let's see what that looks like. And I think that works, right? You have the cannons centered here with the sunset. We're kind of zoomed in here a little bit. You still get the idea of the vastness of the landscape. And I could pull this in just a little bit more to kind of tighten it up. But, you know, again, more nitpicking than anything else. And I feel like maybe the cannons, maybe we do something like that. I think that works well. Yeah, I do actually like this. It's like a 50-50 split of the image with the horizon line, which there's kind of two horizon lines here, right? You got the one that's here, just above the fence line, and then you have one above the tree line where the sun is setting. So kind of helps with everything. So here is the before, and here is the after. Now, I know I went through a bunch of things, kind of rambled. Hopefully there was some value in this. If there was, please smash the like button. If you got questions, then just let me know down in the comment section below. And if you want to learn how to use ON1 Photo RAW, consider signing up for a one-on-one coaching call with me, where I will help you learn the tools inside of ON1, or I'll help you develop a workflow. And so 1 hour call, you can do so by checking the link in the description box below. And until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.